So I'm going to start with two things. First of all, if you're here not for this session, please stay. It will be fun. And second of all, we have only 20 minutes, so I will have to rush it a little bit sometimes. But again, I'll be available afterwards. We have actually several booths where we talk about some of this stuff, so you'll get a chance to ask questions and follow up and dig deeper. Same with whether it's a bit too technical or a little not technical enough. Again, just memorize that and we'll talk about it. So my name is Ilya. I'm a chief architect for Jitterbit. Jitterbit, if you haven't heard about us, we've been around for a very, very long time. We are, you might have heard of us as an iPaaS, integration platform as a service. And we're much more than that. And this is what this session is about. It's API transformation. There's some stats here. The idea is to show you that beyond iPaaS and beyond an API transformation, we have a lot of Salesforce knowledge as well. So it's something that we want to share with you to go beyond Salesforce. So the agenda here is to talk about the complexities of an enterprise world, so basically your pains. Go into the potential ways to help with those pains. And then the different personas, as we call them, that are already probably solving some of those pains in your enterprise, in your company. So where did it all begin? It began with lots and lots of systems. So whether you're a mom and pop shop and maybe you're thinking that you're only using Salesforce, is probably not true. You're also using emails. People in your enterprise are probably sending Excel files. And all those things are usually not connected. So the market evolved a little bit. We started connecting those dots. Who's connecting those dots? IT. A guy who's running around trying to keep everything connected and working. We took on the next path. We evolved. We got an enterprise bus to connect. We said point-to-point is probably not very good. Let's have a single point, usually and hopefully not a failure, but a single point that will connect all those things. Great idea. Now you have even bigger IT shop that's running this thing, configuring, making sure it's running properly. This is where Jitterbit comes in. We work along with your bus to connect you not only to your behind-the-firewall systems, not only to files, things, emails, what have you, behind your firewall and to the cloud, to Salesforce, NetSuite, Taleo, Workday, anything else that may be out there that you need connectivity to. One of the things that we've always been saying is that you should not be blocked by the technology. If your sales team wants to use Salesforce, if your marketing team wants to use Marketo, you should not be blocking them. You shouldn't be telling them, well, the standard is, here's the master records, you have to use this system. That's not how we want to do this. You don't want to force your developers into Salesforce. If they want to use a database, if there is a SQL Server or Oracle running out there, are you really going to force them to use Salesforce as the back-end system? Probably not. We evolved even beyond that. Now we have clouds out there. Salesforce is really a cloud in itself also, but we also have various systems, various services provided by these big juggernauts out there. And you want to utilize some of those benefits, whether it's just file storage, S3, whether it's something else, you want to benefit from that. Why can't you? Why do you have to hire an IT shop or a big consulting company to help you get on the bandwagon? And then, of course, everybody talks about that. AI, machine learning. Again, same thing. People talk about it, much like IoT. A lot of people are not sure quite what it is. They just want to use it. They want to benefit from it. Again, you need something that will help you connect those dots, give you that that oomph without the need to hire hundreds and hundreds of developers. So one of the solutions, and you've, I'm sure, heard it at some of the other sessions, is try using microservices. The dependencies go down. Everything just gets solved. You have this enterprise. It's very scary. Now we're going to just go with microservices and APIs, and magic happens. It's a great goal. The target is great as well. Microservices, again, pretty much everybody says it's a good idea, so it must be a good idea. But there is a problem. who's going to create those microservices, who's going to refactor everything you have, who's going to connect to those systems, who's going to connect to that machine learning AI stuff. There is a bridge that's broken here. It's really, really tough to try to do hundreds of projects at the same time. Each project is probably very doable, but hundreds of them at the same time, not so much. You have legacy systems on top of that you already know how to use. You have cloud systems that you're learning how to use. You have machine learning and AI that it seems like every few months is a new thing is going to go out there and offer up. So again, how do you do that? Are you again hiring multiple consulting shops? What do you do? We believe that there is a way to connect those things, to compose those things, instead of having to create a new thing each time. Don't invent a bicycle. If you already connected your system with Jitterbit, you know the ease of use of Jitterbit. You know how easy it is to connect to those systems, again, behind the scenes, connect to Salesforce, connect to other things. But what you've likely been trying to solve is the immediate business problems. You've been connecting those dots, much like back in the day, whether it's through a single tier or multi-tier, but you were still doing arguably point-to-point. You don't have to do that. Again, each project, each point-to-point connection is really not a point-to-point business logic connection. It's actually an API now. Every single project that you've done can be exposed as an API. You can publish and manage these APIs. You can start composing innovative apps yourself. And then everything will be great again. Delightful customer experience. On top of it, again, as you're connecting those things in-house, there are external APIs that you want to consume. Some of them are just specific APIs, again, maybe Marketo, others. Maybe you've changed how you send your email. You're using one of the cloud providers to send your email and to do it properly. But maybe there's more to it. Most systems nowadays, even AIs and machine learning, they expose APIs for you to consume. Some will be pretty advanced, but they will all be APIs and ones that you can work with Jitterbit to control and manage. Now, again, because things can be complex at times, we do realize that there are different people to serve. There are different people that you serve in your company. There are different people that we serve ourselves. We see 4 personas. They're citizens, people that use Salesforce. They're users. They're developers. They are the ones that build integrations, build that connectivity, figure out how would that API work. They're the ones that use those endpoint recipes, and the ones that manage your DevOps shop. Now, for the creation of the integrations and for creation of the APIs, we do separate them out. They do need a little bit different tools, but it really is what back in the day was called developers, probably a lot of you here in the audience. What you have to do with Jitterbit to make this easy for you to connect all those dots and expose those integrations, you're going to use what we're calling JIT Studio. It's an interface that allows you to easily connect your endpoints visually, just like I often refer to it as a Visio. Now, don't be fooled. Of course, Visio is a diagram tool. Jitterbit is a little bit more than that. A lot of times you do want to customize things. It's maybe not a point-to-point. There is editing that needs to be done. But it is still a very, very visual tool. On top of that is the API management tool. Ability to expose APIs, ability to monitor those APIs, whether that's internal, in-house, or external. Whether it's an API that you developed yourself, or maybe you're proxying an external API, and now you want to manage and view how's that API being used. Maybe you have an SAP system, and the amount of connections is limited. You want to control the number of connections, and you want to monitor how is it being used. This tool allows you to do that. Again, the idea here is not to be limited by technology. Just because you're using SAP, just because you may be limited on connections, why should that be a problem for you? SAP is a great tool. Expose it properly. Now, citizen integrators, those are the guys that have always been the afterthought. We're developers. We know how to code things. When they ask us, we will do that. It may be a ticket that will take 6 months to get to. It may end up being not exactly what they asked for, but we'll get there. Citizen experience, as we call it, or citizen integrator, is an idea to expose those benefits that you already have achieved as a developer, expose those interfaces, and allow for your internal users to consume them and manage them and configure themselves. It's a fairly innovative idea. This is a term that came around just a few years ago, but it's taken a hold. You can see here this idea of Max the marketer having an interface of his own where he chooses, I want to connect my system to Slack. You can see here Riley, the recipe builder, that chooses to say, hey, this developer developed, or business analyst developed flow, it's something that's reusable. So she's going to expose it as a recipe. And then at the end of the day, of course, this is not just a tool, it's a platform. You have your APIs, you have your brain trust, spending time there. You want to make sure that you manage and control things properly. We have the DevOps tool. In fact, we take it to the next level. If you're a developer and you want to control your destiny to the nth extent, with the citizen and everything else, we're trying to simplify things, but you may still want to, again, use the APIs. So what we've done is we've exposed our own APIs. Everything and anything you see with this platform is exposed as an API. Every button, every screen, everything you do is an API that you can actually manage and control yourself. You can actually use Jitterbit to manage Jitterbit's management APIs. We sort of eat our own dog food here. So that was the quick flow. What I want to show you is a quick demo, if I can, or if I may. What I'm going to show you here, and let me do this, is one of those interfaces that I talked about. This is a JIT Studio. This is an interface that a developer gets exposed to. Again, some of you might have seen it before, so you should relate very much. But what we're going to do is a little bit different than what you usually use Jitterbit for. We're not just going to connect a couple of points. We're actually going to expose what is called an OData API. OData is a standard. It's one that's supported by Salesforce Connect. Again, it's been around for a couple of years, and it's one of many, many APIs that you may be interested in. With Salesforce, we have a few other sessions as well where we talk about the new capabilities that they're actually announcing and are talking about here at Dreamforce. But the OData is the one that Salesforce Connect has been able to connect to for a couple of years, and it's been slowly gaining momentum. And it's really, really simple and very useful. The idea of OData is ability to expose your backend data, SAP I mentioned, maybe database, I've mentioned that as well. The idea of exposing that data without actually moving that data to Jitterbit. A, real time. B, not paying money for the storage. And C, did I mention real time? If you have a lot of data, real time is simply not achievable. If you have too much, if it's big data that we're talking about, it's just not going to happen. What OData allows you to do is to have an interface so you can query, you can insert, update, delete records. It's a really powerful mechanism. Unfortunately, not a lot of tools support it. So while Salesforce does on its side, there are systems out there, majority of the systems that don't. Furthermore, the ones that do, going back to the DevOps, they're probably not going to feel very good in exposing those. SQL Server, do you want it out there, available on the internet for anybody to hit? Probably not. So one of the things that you can do with Jitterbit is a very easy, what we call it, entity exposure. So I'm going to choose here API entity, and I'm going to create a new one. In this case, I'm going to go with a database. A number of databases are supported, basically JDBC, ODBC. I'm going to make sure that the connection is still sound. All right, so I was able to connect to my database. The database is likely behind the firewall, and yet I'm going to expose it to Salesforce, the one that's in the cloud. And click Next. I'm going to download all the tables. Usually not something that you're going to do. You'll know what's available. Let me see. I'll just use orders. There we go. Order detail. Here are a few columns. You can further customize it and control for what gets exposed. Again, this idea of extra limits. Maybe your database contains customers in several regions. You may not want to expose it. You may want to expose only one region. You can further customize it, set what the primary key is, so that you can call upon it with the primary key. Again, OData is a standard. So this OData API that you're going to expose, you're going to be able to use it in Excel if you wanted. You can use it in your app that you will design. So it's a very, very powerful system. I'm going to go ahead and continue. If you have a very complex system, maybe there is no primary key. That's allowed as well. You can further customize the transformations. The transformations are mere changes of data on the flow, on the wire. So when perhaps Salesforce requests US, do you want it to automatically convert to USA? Things like that. I'm just going to go ahead and click Finish. You have a full-blown API now exposed. It's an operation that takes an API request, potentially from Salesforce. It's going to do a pass-through. It's not going to do a transformation because I didn't choose one, right? It's going to go to the database, pull the order detail information, or vice versa, push the order detail information, and it's going to pass through the response. If it's a pool of a kind, a query, a select statement, if you will, then that's going to be the data coming back. If it's a push, so perhaps a delete, insert, again, you're going to get a response of telling you whether it was successful or not. When you're done and you're able to deploy this, and apologies, security above all else. So when you're done with that, you can go into the API management, and you're able to expose it as a new OData service. You'll choose your environment. You'll choose a name you want for it. You can see the URL is being built out right on the fly. So again, you can see the idea. I'm just doing OData here because I think OData is fun. Hope you do too. But you can actually do it for any API, whether it's a RESTful or even SOAP web services that you want to expose. This is the exact same thing you're going to do. You even can do versioning, and the system will automatically control for the version that you set. So if you're going in and you're adjusting your authentication, you're adjusting other things, it will give you a warning. Hey, you're doing a live change. Are you sure you want to do that? Or maybe that should be a new version, perhaps. And then you can actually start navigating. Again, this gets a little bit more technical, which methods to use. You don't have to do that. If you do want to support anything and everything, this is all you do. All in assigned types. And this is the API operation. It gives you a warning. Hey, you're just about to let people delete your records. Are you sure you want to do that? You have control over it, whether you want to do that or not. And you can now see that Salesforce will be able to do get, put, post, delete, patch, and merge. All methods are available. At last, there is authentication and changes to the security. We're running a little bit out of time, so I'm just going to switch over to Salesforce. External data sources, if you haven't seen it, it's right under Setup. You go under External Data Sources, and it's very, very simple. You can create a new external data source, or you can edit one that you have. All it is a URL that gets exposed. You can adjust further, including the, again, security between Salesforce and the Jitterbit API. This is all you need to do. Once the external data source is consumable by Salesforce, Salesforce will automatically create the external object. So this entity that I defined, it is now an actual new, absolutely new object. It's not just a field someplace, it's an object you can work with, external object. So with that, I'm going to switch over back to my presentation, the last slide. If any of this was interesting to you, which I hope it was, you can find us at a number of booths here, actually at the Dev Forest, kiosk number 5, and we have more sessions coming, including the new platform events. Thanks, everybody.